Since the first Fire User's Flex video gained so much positive feedback, we're back for round 2. You know, those scenes that make you go wow and ouch at the same time. So, without further ado, let's get into the second set of moments when Fire Users in anime flexed on their opponents. Blitzing into the list, we have the lioness Mereoleona versus her punching bag Raya from Black Clover. Before the fight, Raya was heavily established to be a threat due to his immense magic power, and with his transformation magic, he proves to be an opponent that not anyone should take lightly. Well, that is after he faces off against Mereoleona, and right off the bat, Mereoleona blitzes forward with blinding speed, hitting him straight in the face. Yes, Raya might have had the upper hand due to the flexibility of his magic, using the appropriate spells in the situation, which is, in this case, water magic, and Mereoleona, being the badass that she is, just opted to take the attack head on. After all, there's no need for mere tactics if you just turn up the heat and turn it into steam. Despite Raya changing up his angle of attack, Mereoleona's sheer power and strength just burst right through it, even foiling his last-ditch effort by copying Astar's sword. Let this be a lesson for Raya, to never again look down on the indomitable will that humans are capable of. What we have next is Escanor versus Estarossa from 7 Deadly Sins. If we're talking about flexing, then you can count on Escanor, for this guy is just a literal walking and talking flex. His very existence is to flaunt his pride, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it since this man has the skills and power to back it up, and that was truly showcased in his fight against Estarossa. His quotes are enough of a flex on their own, but what comes after is what truly matters, as he summons Cruel Sun, which then proceeds to easily blow away Estarossa with minimal effort. And in the ensuing fight, despite Estarossa using Blackout to cancel out Escanor's Cruel Sun, his efforts were for nothing in the end, as Escanor's pride simply won't allow it. He then simply shrugged it off and hit him dead center, with his Cruel Sun burning him to a crisp. In the whole series, this man has done nothing but kick ass, defy the odds, and flex whilst he's at it, and we certainly love him for it. Now, you may disagree that he's a Fire User, and to that I'd say, who decided that? Coming up next, Garna vs Sieg from one of the most chronologically confusing series, Fate. We have arguably one of the most heated and destructive fights in the whole show here. After all, if we're talking about fights that are of destructive proportions, then this fight definitely takes the cake. A fight so destructive that maps were probably redrawn because of the aftermath. We were treated to a front row seat in this fight as we witnessed literal gods and legends duke it out and fight for what they believe in. Garna was clearly shown to be the one winning in this fight, as he deforms the landscape and turns them either into rubble or molten magma while slowly driving Sieg into his limits. Garna was able to drive the fight in his favour as he used his noble phantasm Vasavi Shakti to put an end to the fight, but alas, victory was not for him to claim. But we do have to keep in mind, it took Achilles' shield and Frankenstein's galvanism just to squeeze out a victory for Sieg, but that's besides the point here. The sheer display of power that Garna has shown us was enough of a flex on its own, but the story can't go on if the main character's dead. After all, this victory he had to give to someone else, a true hero of charity indeed. Continuing the nuclear mayhem, coming up next we have Benimaru vs Charybdis. If I have to be perfectly honest, this is less of a fight and more of a dummy test. Charybdis was previously established to not be taken lightly, and this here is no exception, as previous episodes have shown that even the three beasts, along with Geld and Gabiru, even had trouble taking it down, even receiving some casualties on the whole ordeal. So yes, this floating shark is still as strong as ever, even despite being an imitation. As things were grim, who else showed up but Benimaru, descending into the battlefield as he slices Charybdis while using his black flame to prevent it from healing, and in an instant engulfing the entire beast with hell flare and just deleted it out of existence. All that within 2 moves, may I remind you. Charybdis, who's been a huge obstacle for the three beasts, Geld and Gabiru for the past 2 days, was just Control-Alt-Deleted by Benimaru using only 2 moves. If that doesn't establish the power dynamic, then I don't know what does. Benimaru has come so far to get to this point, and that should warrant a little bit of flexing in my opinion. So long, Charybdis, you won't be missed. this next anime may well be a nostalgic trip for you. The final fight between Suna and Byakuran in Hitman Reborn was a thrilling climax that showcased the growth and determination of the protagonist, Suna. Tsunayoshi, who started as a timid and clumsy teenager, typical for a shonen protagonist, had to overcome his fears and doubts to unleash his full potential as the Vongola Decimo. Our boy turned from a cowardly schoolboy to the badass leader of one of the most powerful mafia families in the anime. His whole journey in the anime was mostly a flex, so it shouldn't be a surprise that his final fight with the big bad that's been looming since the start of the anime would be one of the most memorable moments of the show. The fight was a clash of wills, skills, and ideals, coupled with the animation that was fluid and dynamic, stunning effects, and a soundtrack that enhanced the emotional impact of the scene. Battling against the enemy who has the same abilities as you while also being buffed as hell and has a winning record in a parallel dimension, you'd think the odds would be stacked against Suna, but of course not. This is a shonen anime we're talking about. It's only right that his ancestor, who is the first ever boss of the mafia, would appear and remove Suna's limiters. He then proceeded to rip Byakuran's wings off and after tragic twists and turns, deliver a final blow with the full power of his ironic X-burner, overpowering his enemy's flames while declaring his resolve to protect his friends and family. The fight was a satisfying conclusion to the future final battle arc and cements Reborn as an often overlooked shonen anime that most deservedly needs a remake. Two elements clash in the next entry as we talk about the final fight between Ogami and Hitomi in the Codebreaker anime. Fire and lightning are two sides of the same coin if we're talking about their coolness in anime. The lightning user Hitomi also appeared on one of our lists when he single-handedly dealt with all the codebreakers early on in the series, with Ogami, the edgy fire user, being defeated by his teacher. This cemented Hitomi's position as a strong and compelling antagonist that the heroes have to overcome. His comeuppance arrives in the final episode where Ogami releases his true power along with an over-the-top flourish just for removing his ring. The scene oozes with edginess as blue flames appear in the shape of a serpent and an English voice overlaps with his when Ogami tells Hitomi that he's gonna burn him up. The azure flames aren't just for show and Hitomi and the other codebreakers realize the terrifying power when the flames effortlessly burn his white lightning attacks. You just know you're a goner when you see blue fire just eating up your lightning attacks and the guy those flames came from just stands around there menacingly. As much as the anime ended up being somewhat of a disappointment, the scene sticks out as one memorable flex for an edgy fire user. The goddess from Fate Grand Order takes the stage as coming up next we have Quetzalcoatl. The Fate series really does love their nuclear explosions as once again we're treated to one of the most orgasmic and satisfying visual and sound designs that the Fate series has to offer. This scene is a gorgeous spectacle and an enormous flex in my opinion, showing Quetzalcoatl's impressive nuking abilities, not once, but twice. Her noble phantasm, Piedra del Sol, is very much indicative of her capabilities and power as a servant, as it allows her to open up a gate that gives her the ability to utilize her authority over the literal sun, unleashing a blast of solar wind in the surrounding area, evaporating not only the ground that Tiamat is standing on, but also chaos tide along with it. If that city annihilating level of attack isn't enough to impress you, then fret not, as the party's just getting started. She also used Ultimo Tope Patada, an extinction level dropkick that imitates the very same meteor that almost killed all life on Earth. If that display of power still doesn't impress you, then you also have to keep in mind that she wasn't even in her full power state when performing those noble phantasms. She was nerfed so hard so that she wouldn't convert the entire continent in a pile of molten slug. Yeah, that's a flex, alright. Following that one-sided beatdown, we have Charon the Reflector from Fire Force. The one coming up next is arguably one of the coolest characters in the series. I know he's supposed to be an antagonist, but it isn't fair if you make him this cool. You might argue that he's not a fire user, but if you think about it, Charon is still basically a fire user in a sense due to his ability to manipulate and control fire, and that reflector ability of his was presented front and center in his confrontation against Nataku. Now, in a berserk and unstable state, Nataku was about to blow everyone and their dog to kingdom come with this attack, and that was basically on par with that of an atomic bomb. And of course, who's best to receive such a lovely present other than the reflector himself, tanking the whole blast using nothing but his fist and sheer willpower, absorbing the entirety of the blast and reflecting it straight to the moon. In terms of pure unadulterated badassery, this is surely up there. Once again, I present to you Charon the Reflector, and you better put some respect on his name. To cap off our list, we have one of the most visually stunning Chinese anime created by Samsara Studios, released in 2019. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Fog Hill of 5 Elements. Wenren Yu Xuan, the protagonist, is a former aspect of fire, but former doesn't mean weaker, as his fight with the Beast of Wrath proves it. The power and martial prowess of the aspect of the elements are shown here in full display, all the while supported by the marvelous animation and sound design of Samsara Studios. This isn't only a flex by the aspect of fire, Yu Xuan, who held his own against the Quilin, aka the strongest demon, but also the small team of Chinese animators that proved they have the passion and skill to make a banger anime. And those are my second set of favourite moments when fire users flexed on their opponents. But again, there are just so many characters that can control flames in anime, there's bound to be some more that I've missed. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm glad to have you here, and thanks so much again for watching this video.